and then I'm going to take my.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Dr. Mishkat Al Mumin. I'm the brand ambassador for Quarantine Racism. You can always reach me on LinkedIn at Mishkat Al Mumin. Also, feel free to look up my video and YouTube channel, The Communication of Success, YouTube at The Communication of Success. And today's topic, it's the pinnacle of success because I want each and every school district and every educator to get the funding that they need. So without any further ado, let's get started. Let's see how can we hack the grant application systems and get the big money. So, this topic focuses on grant writing. You might say to yourself, well, I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, I'm a principal. Why should I care about grant writing? Why it matters? Here's the first thing, you will have the essential resources that you need to fund your school. So you will not only secure the salaries and fringes of your teachers and staff members, but you can get funding for 3 years from now. You will have a secure amount set aside for you and your school. Next, you can enhance equity, innovation, and access. So, for example, the Quarantine Racism Education Services, we provide 2 courses for teachers to enhance racial relationships in their classrooms. These courses cost money. Rather than paying for these courses out of the school budget, you can write a grant and get funded. And this way, it's not coming out of your budget. Also, focus on innovation and access. And that's when the communication of success comes through. I share with you out of the box strategies, not only to deal with workplace favoritism or bullying, but gain access, such as the discussion today about grant writing. You will have access to additional resources or much needed resources. Unlock scalable impact. So uh, you can scale up all the internal programs that you have in your school and make sure, first of all, they reach wider audience so you have wider impact. Furthermore, you can sustain them for a longer period of time. So, the first step in grant writing, and believe me, it's the most difficult step, it's to understand the request for proposals, or commonly known as the RFP. So, in the grant world, you will always see people saying, so what did the RFP say? Is there an RFP currently open? So, that's kind of the lingo they use. But the thing about the RFP, even though it's written in English, it's not plain English. The funder, the issuer of this RFP, has goals, requirement, and terminology. And we will touch on that in a second. But you need to take time to digest. And some of these RFPs can be 100 pages. And the best approach that I found that worked in my career, and just to let you know, last year, only last year, I raised $46,000 in grants for educational programs. So, one of the key strategies that I use is divide and conquer. So, each team member will take a chapter of the RFP, read it, analyze it, come up with a summary, and we will have a strategic meeting about it. And I'll talk about that in a second. Now, here is the other strategy that I use. You have to, you don't have another option. You need to talk and use the funder language. So, if the funder is talking about options for learners, such a vague term, it can mean anything and everything. You reflect that in your proposal. And just to put your mind at ease, personally, as a grant writer, I prefer vague terms because that allows me to interpret them the way that position my grant in the most competitive manner. So I don't get focused on, or feel like I'm restricted just because the grant is using certain terminology. I take time again to digest them, analyze them, and come up with a strategy how to reflect them and meet them within my proposal. Align program design with priorities. So, access is a priority, having access to educational programs. Outcomes. So, I'm going to give you $1,000 just for the sake of the argument. What are the outcomes that you are giving me? There is something, or a tool, the logic framework. It talks about, and it should highlight the input that is going to the proposal, the outcomes, and the output as well. We can have a discussion about that in the next live stream. And then innovation. Innovation has two layers here. If you keep repeating the same program again and again, and I have seen nonprofits and school districts continue to fall into this trap. They have a successful program running for 5 years, they continue to apply for grants using the exact same module. It makes sense, it's a successful program, but what happens is that you have competition. There are others in the market who will present something newer, more convincing, and more innovative. So everyone wants the new thing, not the same thing again and again. Checklist every requirement to ensure full compliance. Earlier in my career, my heart was broken when I submitted a grant, a full blown grant, right to the centimeter of everything, only for the funder to come and say, well, you didn't sign the cover letter. It should have been signed, therefore, I'm denying the grant. What I'm trying to convey to you, grants are competitive and they are not there to kind of cater to your need. The whole process is designed to be very selective. So only the top notch, meaning they will be picking and choosing, and they will go after small details, including signatures, including, for example, did you submit on time? Were there some delays? Do you have access to the platform where submission is taking place? All of that. So the checklist really matters here to ensure compliance with the RFP, with the call for proposals. Now we have to identify the problem behind issuing the RFP or the request for proposals. So, why did this particular agency, this particular corporation, decided to issue this RFP? What's the end game? What do they want to achieve? So, every RFP is a solution to a specific problem. Uh, we need to not only understand it, but also analyze it. Each problem is layered. So let's say if you want to focus on youth development. So one way to encourage youth development is to encourage youth to, be involved in STEM education or STEM career path development. Similarly, youth development can be seen as engaging young people in voting. This is a development. So you have to understand specifically what they are calling for and what do they need help with. For example, are they looking for educational programs for STEM, for English literature, or are they looking, for example, for civic engagement, green energy? What's the end game behind this proposal? And this is strategic so as you can propose the solution. And that when, reading between the lines come in handy because you have to identify the gap, that the funder is trying to close. So, for example, are they talking about closing the gap or the gender gap in engineering? If so, what will your school propose to achieve that goal? So that's just an example. You have to ask, is the focus of this RFP on equity? Is it focused on access? Do they want an equitable solution? Do they want increased access, increased performance? Are they seeking innovation in new and creative ways to address the problem or just community impact? Each one of these will determine how will you write the grant. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this live stream, even though the grant is written in English, there is vagueness in the language. To address vagueness, you have to have background and performance engagement with the RFP. And believe me, I had people, with masters in English or writers on their own rights or native speakers of English. They come and ask me, how are we going to meet this requirement? I read it, it didn't make any sense to me. And they were right, all of them. Because what the RFP is talking about, specific requirement for funding. So it's not kind of unchecked check that you will receive. There are lots of requirements that you have to meet before you will have access to the fund. That's why I'll keep emphasizing that you have to use the funder language, mirror their intent, show alignment, let them know that you heard them. You heard the problem, you are proposing a solution that will take care of that problem for them. And I'll touch on that later because oftentimes, what I've noticed from my experience, educators and administrators tend to talk about one, what they are familiar with, not what the funder wants. Second, present their needs, not the solution to the problem. I'll give you just a kind of an obvious example. You need $10,000 now. So you're going to apply for the $10,000. It doesn't mean you are going to get it from that grant just because you mentioned you need the money and you have urgent need. Maybe your school is underfunded, maybe your classes, they do need specific equipment, your students may be failing. All of that doesn't matter to the funder, but what matters to them is that you make them feel that they were heard through the language used to specify the problem, and you have used it to present a solution. Here is an example. So if the RFP is focusing on learning recovery, so your program need to address, for example, post-pandemic academic gaps using targeted interventions. So this way you present a strategy, a path to the solution. And then throughout this path, you will have benchmarks and milestones. These will be very important for you, one, to evaluate success and share it with the funder. Second, to demonstrate that you spend the money on time and within the budget. Here is the question that I'd like you to ask any funder who's trying to give you money. What type of a report you want from me? Even if they told you where I don't need any reporting, issue a report for them. One, it will show that you are serious about building a rapport with them, something that we emphasize here at Quarantine Racism, as well as the communication of success. You have to build rapport. Just like you build rapport with your students, you build rapport with your funder. How do you do that? Through reporting. They may, not even say thank you for the email, but when needed, they will pull up your report and mention it in their economic and environment requirement or community giving requirement or benchmarks that they are trying to meet. Data is the centerpiece of any grant writing or any proposal you'd like to submit. And I'll talk about that also in another slide. But each claim you make, you have to submit the data that supports it. The most important piece of data is the one you own, so the one that's coming from your school. If you don't have that, or if you have a restricted access to it, then you can see if you can find the information from the funder, which is another way to tell them that you are hearing their concerns. You are building alignment with them. So make sure to review their websites, their publications, to see what do they say about the problem, so as you can design the solution. Here comes the part that I enjoy the most, honestly. It's how you manipulate your content to fit the RFP. And I'll have to tell you straightforward, you will never be handed the perfect RFP that fits your need, that you have all the data for, that you are the best school to apply for. It doesn't exist. Your job is to build it. So, brick by brick, you are going to build this proposal. Here is an example. Learner options, very vague. Perhaps you never used it in your school, but what you can talk about is differentiated instruction. In a way, you are giving learners options to learn based on their pace, based on their learning style, based on their needs. Some of my colleagues used to butt heads with the RFP. What is this nonsense? Why they are asking for this? This is unrealistic. What I used to tell them is, I hear you, but for this moment, I want us to come together to secure this funding. It's very easy to, criticize the RFP and pinpoint what's wrong with it. But your goal that you need to focus on is to win the money. So if all your energy go to criticizing the RFP or claiming that it's vague, unrealistic, whatever the case is, you will not be able to focus on writing the grant. So that's your objective here. And finish and submit on time. As I talked about earlier, data matters. Strengthen your proposal by connecting your strategies. So you before we talked about data to demonstrate, to prove the problem. Now we are going to use data in a different way. Again, manipulate content by connecting strategies. So your solution should be connected to evidence-based outcome. So addressing visual, auditory, kinesthetic learning style supports learners' option. It demonstrates that you are giving your learners some options. Where did I get that from? The Department of Education. Why? Because I'm applying for a grant from the Department of Education. So in this case, I not only use their language once, I'm using it throughout the grant proposal. Every single step of the way, I'm telling this particular funder, I hear you and I'm going to deliver. You have to develop a strong narrative. So I want you to think about writing a grant like telling a story. Your story should be believable. So spending time developing the narrative, sometimes it's called program narrative as well. Spend time developing it. And I'm going to give you a tip on how to enhance it in a second. But let's go over it. So you tell the story with the data. Who are your student? What is their needs? And how it's fitting. All of that needs to fit the end game, which is addressing the problem that the RFP is presenting and seeking solutions for. Quantify the program and the program impact. 25 increase in STEM scores, 27 increase in reading proficiency. You have to present why your solution works. So how are you going to do that? Data is your best friend. So when you tell this story, you are going to use some numbers to support it. You have to show confidence in your solution and continue to have a solution oriented tone. Oftentimes, when I review grants, there is a lot of grim reality in it. It's true, it's reality. I'm not saying it didn't happen, it happens the way it was described. But the objective of responding to the RFP is presenting the solution. If you yourself, as a grant writer, you are not confident in it, you are more focused on the problem, And again, focusing on the problem comes from not understanding the RFP. Then, when the review team comes, they are going to see like your proposal is very problem oriented. And here is this other school where their proposal is solution oriented. So be aware of that part in writing when you start developing your proposal. Uh, my recommendation is to start with local, smaller grants. What do I mean by that? So, local sources are more accessible. So, Walmart in your school district, Target, Costco, local banks, they all typically, all year round, oftentimes it's quarterly. So, every quarter they have a cycle. And you can be awarded from 5,000 to 10,000. If you have 10 small grants approved, that's $100,000 for your school. This is a lot of money. Here's an example. So, again, last year I raised 13K from a local bank here in Nevada for STEM tools. You know, I registered on their website, studied their requirement, and submitted not once, twice. And each time they came back and funded my proposal. You can go after large funders, such as the Department of Education, Toyota. They fund, large grants. You have Honda, even Coca-Cola. They do have their foundation, and they fund programs worldwide, not only in the United States. But try to find one major corporation that's operating in your school district. In my experience, locality matters because of the rapport, the relationship that you are going to build with them. Furthermore, the local dealership, let's say, of Toyota in your school district, they can demonstrate community engagement. Whether the community buys their car or not, that's another story. But they want to demonstrate community engagement, giving back to the community. All these things matter to them. Oftentimes, these large grants they range from 500K to 2 million over a period of 1 to 3 years. So, for example, if you have 2 million or 3 millions, they will not give you that money all at once. They will distribute it each time you complete a segment of your grant over time. So, again, that's why I always encourage reporting and grant management. And I'm happy to answer any question about these two subjects. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or my YouTube channel. I even have a Substack if you would like to reach out to me there. I'm happy to answer questions. Forming coalitions is key in this particular economy, and I'll tell you why. Rather than having one school compete against another school, and you both will get what I'm going to call the breadcrumbs, you can join forces together and build a coalition and apply for more money. So rather than each one of you getting 100K or 150, you together, because of you will become a larger coalition or a larger applicant. You will be better position to ask for more money. And in this case, building a coalition really matters. You can include universities, so you can create a pipeline. If you are a school district, you can start a pilot project from elementary, middle to high school, all the way to community college and universities to kind of bring it all together, one full circle. Involving nonprofits is a great idea because you amplify, the same message will be um, heard from multiple sources, not only one school, but the entire school district, the nonprofits in the area, the university can write a research about it. And just, like a pro tip, write an action research about your grant experience. So after the grant ends and then you submit your final report, write an action research paper about it and try to publish it, even if it goes on the school websites. That's an excellent place for it. This way you can reference it and use it for other grant applications. So engagement and coalitions matter in these situations. Budgeting and sustainability. I know oftentimes each community leader, nonprofit leader, teacher, even principals, somehow the word budget serves as a deterrent. To be honest with you, personally, I like budgets and numbers. I feel, again, they are trying to tell a story of how much will be spent on what. That's the entire concept of the budget. That's it. So, within that concept, how much will be spent on what? The second question will be when. So, what milestone? So, you have to create line items, you have to create staff. Um, with staff, I'm also going to give you a tip and an insight. You have to monitor time charging to the grant. If the staff member didn't work on the grant or didn't service the grant or did not meet whatever the deliverable of that particular grant is trying to accomplish, they should not charge their time to the grant. That will be Achilles' heel, and the funder will know about it. They can audit you, and it will become a huge issue. So that's my kind of inside tip when it comes to staff member charging their time to the grant. Second, you have materials. As you probably know, the word materials, again, vague. So it can mean anything from handouts to curricula to books and or food. Again, just gonna give you a heads up here. Food is a big no-no. Oftentimes, unless like there's a corporation that is funding you the money, and they will bring the food. So it's not part of the grant. It's them bringing like sandwiches or refreshments or whatever the case from their own budget. But even when you apply for a grant from Toyota, the first question is, are you going to use the money for food? If you think about it, as you know, motivating food can be, it's true. If you have a couple of slices of pizzas and, some Coca-Cola, people will be inclined to come. It doesn't mean that you've created engagement that is measurable. All it shows from budgeting point of view is that X amount of money was spent on something that didn't bring impact to the program. That's why it's, you know, prohibited. Definitely, federal grants, they spell it out in multiple ways. Not only no food, but no drinks. They specify alcoholic drinks. So, all these items are considered perishable, difficult to measure, and no service to the grant or to the solution um, that you are trying to present will come from it. Then you have training. Are you going to conduct training in person? So, again, do you need to hire these experts who will conduct the training? Is it going to be conducted over Zoom or Teams? If so, are you buying these licenses? Or will it be matching or in kind matching? Definitely, funders like in kind matching. And just to give you another heads up, you will be asked what other sources of funding do you have to support this program? They want to measure sustainability. So that's how they ask about it. Most importantly, even though it's the last item, evaluation. So we have completed this wonderful grant. We have spent all that money on time within budget. What's the evaluation? And as educators, you are the best to understand assessment. So you have to present to your funder how did the program do? So, did you achieve your goals? What were the challenges? And this is a good point to address in your evaluation. How will you address it next time? So, lessons learned and takeaways. My other tip here, don't wait for the final report to share challenges, because the first thing the funder will tell you, why didn't you tell me earlier? Again, that's why the first question I ask each funder, starting from the one who's gonna give me $1,000 all the way to the one who's gonna give me $100 million, how would you like me to report on this grant? And even if they say just write a report, I will not, just take it and that's it. What would you like to see in the report? Do you want to see X? Do you want to see Y? What's considered successful to you, um, on this particular deliverable? How do we, show you that we met this deliver? I engage them in a conversation that helps me understand their expectations better and reflected in my evaluation report. Just like, you as a principal, as an administrator, you sit with your staff and you explain your expectations and, follow up on it with your staff members. The same approach applies to evaluation. Some grants that range from, let's say, 500K to a couple of millions of dollars, you are encouraged to hire an independent evaluator. So not you evaluating you, but someone outside will come and um, evaluate your success, so to speak. And in this case, they will highlight, shortcomings if they find any. Needless to say that independent evaluators, they carry more weight. Nevertheless, the report you submit, backed with data, has a lot of weight as well. Justify all the costs based on students' outcomes. So, what do I mean by that? If half of the money goes to overhead or goes to staff salaries, then you don't have student outcomes. You need to present how this money is going to improve learning outcomes. Students will have higher scores. Students will, secure scholarships. Whatever you are presenting as the solution, that needs to be aligned with the cost, and then you need to be realistic. So, for example, just as an example, it cannot be that you will be spending, let's say, half of the budget again on creating the curriculum or designing instructions. Things needs to be balanced in such a way that will amplify, will make the spending worthwhile, so to speak. So you have to give the donor um, a lot of outcomes per their dollar sign. So when they weigh it, oh, that's worth it. I'm going to fund this. If it's not worth it, they won't, even if it makes sense, even if it's backed by data. you know, Budget alignment and cost justification is really the center of grant writing. So many grants or RFPs, even the ones for the $5,000, they will ask you to write a budget justification. So why are you asking for, let's say, $500? Where did you get that $500 number from? So, and I'll show you a couple of examples, but just to kind of warm you up to it. The sustainability plan, which we talked about earlier, when they ask you, do you have other sources to fund the same program, they are trying to measure if the program is sustainable after the grant has ended. So, again, as you can see from what I'm trying to present to you, they want the ultimate impact. If I'm going to give you this money, and after a year we are done and finished, and that's it, and no one remembers anything, that's not the impact I'm trying to achieve. But if I'll give you this amount of money, and there is a scalable, ongoing progress, then yes, I'm gonna invest in this. And I believe we just talked about longevity and scalability. With scalability, you can, for example, expand to other school districts. You can expand to other states. These are just a couple of ideas. You can also, again, create the pipeline from elementary, even pre K, all the way to community college. So that shows that this program is scalable, it can be expanded, it can be built upon. So, as a funder, I will be inclined to fund it. Just a pro tip here for you: all grants, including the small ones, they will tell you we will give you funding, let's say from $500 to $3,000. Don't ask for the 3,000, especially on your first grant. Go for something reasonable. 2,000 should be enough in this case. What you don't know is that sometimes the 3,000 is all they have. So it's not like they have multiple 3,000s laying around. That's the ultimate money they have. If they give it to one school, all of it, that's not good on them, because they want to show impact. To show impact, you need multiple schools. So be reasonable and always ask for less if you are applying for the first time. If they don't know you, there is no trust built, before your application, they will be hesitant to fund you. Designing a strong grant budget requires the following. You have to align the budget with the narrative. So, again, each line item supports a program, goals, or activity that is described in your proposal. So, when you say, for example, X amount of money for staff, for how long, what's their hourly rate, what exactly they are going to do to service the grant. And here is an example. Avoid something like miscellaneous because this is not transparent. It's not just only vague, it's not transparent. So you are asking even for $500 miscellaneous, fine. But couldn't you tell me that, these, dollars will be spent on, let's say, gas reimbursement or per diem or whatever it is? Rather than telling me it's a miscellaneous, explain what it is. Here's a good example for you: STEM kits for 100 students at 25 each. And here is your final number. Furthermore, I explain what comes in each kit to give the donor or the funder the information, so as I can build trust with them, so they will fund me again when I ask. And next time, of course, I'll ask for more money. Include all key categories. If it's not mentioned, it's not funded. And I have seen so many organizations, go through hoops just to try to, move a line item after it was approved from here to there, or, meet with the funder saying, we didn't account for this and we didn't account for that. Even when you meet with them and you say that, you are eroding your trust, or the trust they have in you. They look at you as a professional who studied the RFP, worked hard on the solution, and presented something meaningful to them, which they approved. So don't come back and try to change it. So that's why I spend time on the budget and make sure it's reviewed, it's checked. Did I miss anything? I'm not ashamed of asking my team members if I missed anything. In fact, I encourage their feedback. I want to stop a little bit on the indirect cost. The indirect cost is a tricky item here. For example, the indirect cost, as you probably know, it goes for items that are required to keep the lights on. So, for example, your electricity bill, your water bill, items such as these, it's called indirect cost. Not every funder or donor would like to donate to that, as important as it is. So double check if it's allowed. Then double check if there is a limit on it. Excuse me. Some organizations, my apologies, the weather where I live is very dry. My apologies again. So, if the indirect cost is allowed, you can ask for it. How much? Oftentimes, organizations audit themselves. So, you have your annual audit, and that will come in handy, especially for Costco grants. They will not give you $500 if you don't have your yearly audit ready. When you do your audit, try to ask for your audited overhead. So when you have your audited overhead, if it's 25, then you can apply with confidence to any donor or corporation and say 25% is my audited overhead. This is better than coming with an estimate or having a board approved overhead. While it is, the second best option to have a board approved overhead, still, it's not like the audited one. Some organization, believe it or not, they were able to have 40% indirect cost because they submit their audited overhead to their donors and funders. Plan for sustainability, and I believe we talked about that. How are you going to sustain the program after the grant ends, which builds confidence with the funder. Double check your total. Believe me, I have seen, the best of the best miss a couple of numbers here and there. And the donor or the prospective donor would call and say, what is your total? Is it this or this? So double checking your totals is very important. If you are skillful with Excel sheets, you can have, your auto sum, or you can enter the formula and format it within Excel. Same approach goes for Google Sheets, for example. You can always ask for help, see who's a skillful in budgeting and presenting line items and tables, and have them help you. Evaluating and reporting. Clearly define how success will be measured. So even though this step will take place after you are awarded the grant, within your grant, you need to define how success will be measured. Is it just student scores, or you will ask for something else? How are you going to measure the solution you proposed earlier? You will use both quantitative and qualitative data, test scores, surveys, questionnaires, open-ended questions. Um, you know, um, the more the merrier in this case. Indicate who is responsible. So you don't need to name them. You don't need to say John Smith, but you need to say the assistant principal. And some grants will ask you for short bios for the entire team as part of the package. Again, as you can see, they are trying to get to know you through the grant application. So you need to collaborate with them. Ongoing evaluation increases the likelihood of future funding. If you evaluate constantly, it means you can show success constantly, something that they are looking for. They all want the impact. But if you wait, sometimes even if you wait quarterly, that's too long, because if there is a problem festering, then by the end of the quarter, it's going to be huge. So having these evaluations be ongoing gives the funder a peace of mind, because it shows that really well the solution you are presenting to them. Organize and start early. I cannot emphasize this tip enough. What I have seen time and time again, organizations, schools, districts, they wait a week, before the deadline to start writing. That's a recipe for a disaster. At least the minimum, you need 2 weeks, the minimum, you know. And you start, the first step, you start by building a share folders for documents and templates. So each requirement and the grant proposal will have a subfolder. So the folder will be, let's say, applying for a grant from the Department of Education. Once it's open, we will see the program narrative. We will see the budget and the budget justification. I even make sure that, the logistical templates are completed: name of the school, name of the principal, their phone number, email address, all of that, needs to be completed as a template. So organization is key here. Track deadlines. So don't assign a task without ensuring that there is a deadline for it. And, just like a pro tip, if the actual deadline is, May 15th, then by the 10th, the entire packet should be ready. And the last 5 days just to, organize the submission process. As we talked about, you have to prepare your budget, your resume. Logic models are charts that oftentimes are used to present data or to present information to the funder. Um, if you can start months ahead, these RFPs get announced, as early as January of any year. And then the deadline will be June, sometimes March, so they give you ahead of a lot of time for you to prepare. There are rare occasions, I have to tell you, extremely rare, like, 5%, when they give you an extension. And the extension is just 1 day. And oftentimes it's given due to technical difficulties, nothing more than that. And then it's extremely rare. I usually get this question a lot: how do I know? So, you don't know what you don't know. You cannot know about every single grant opportunity or RFP that's out there. So, what should you do? And you found out that this grant opportunity is due in 2 days. I'm going to be honest with you here. A federal grant is impossible to finish in 2 days. That's mission impossible. My apologies to Tom Cruise. But, if it's a small grant, then yes, we can go after it. You have to mobilize support immediately. So, all hands on deck. And then you need to identify who's going to write, who's going to edit, who's going to gather the required documents. Just telling you, it cannot be one person. You have to have a team. You have to have also a strategy meeting to, assign roles, review the RFP, and most importantly, clarify how are you going to communicate with the team. Is it going to be on MS Teams? Are you going to create a channel specifically for those who are assigned to this proposal? So you need to clarify and make sure how are you going to communicate with them. You have to have an internal deadline. So if it's 2 days, actually it means you have 1 day to write the grant. Submitting a grant without an internal review, it's a process for a disaster. the recipe for disaster. Excuse me. You have to build a mini review team, sometimes called the red team. It can be one person, it doesn't need to be, multiple people. And then they will review the grant and suggest edits or offer feedback. Oftentimes focused on clarity and you know, alignment between the proposal and the RFP. You have to handle logistic early on. Ensure that you have login credentials, believe me, passwords, and whatnot. All nonprofit schools, even though they keep like an Excel sheet for passwords to apply for grants, it doesn't work. Knowing the formatting rules. Oftentimes they ask for font, paper layout, all of these logistical stuff. It matters because if you miss them, the grant will be rejected immediately. You didn't meet the basics of it. You have to plan ahead next time. So, if you want to create like a spreadsheet for the organizations that you will go after, or use a calendar to remind everybody that this is the cycle when Walmart, opens the third quarter applications, then definitely do that. Again, personally, I'm not a big fan of spreadsheets because they stay in one computer. Also, even if they are shared, they are not visually appealing. Furthermore, the information tend to be limited. So even if you type in Department of Education, and then the second column will be, let's say, January 2026. Are you trying to tell me that the RFP will be open then? Or are you trying to tell me that, we should apply by January, 2026? Spreadsheet are tricky. My recommendation is to use something like Monday.com. Jira, which is another platform, is good, but it's a little bit more sophisticated. There are platforms out there, Grant Watch, Grant Station, Instrumental, they post. They will let you know like these are grant opportunities and they are available right now. You have to subscribe most of the time. For example, Grant Watch, I believe it's 190 per year or 199, around that range. But it's on you to log into Grant Watch and filter the results, then conduct the search. Even when you conduct the search, let's say you said, grants for STEM education in California. The system is going to give you anything and everything. Whether it relates to you, that's another matter. But you have to definitely monitor upcoming opportunities and create some sort of a system to track, when they will become available. I will share with you the major three mistakes. I honestly wanted to make them five and at some point 10, but I limit them to three for the sake of time. Using internal program titles without explaining them. And again, that's when you are rushed, when you are trying to apply, during the last minute. If you say program LEAP as a donor, a funder, that means nothing to me. But you know it. So, because you know it very well, it's difficult for you to explain it. You live with it. But the best possible solution is to always provide a brief, description the first time. the program is mentioned. If you say program leap, the first time you say it, mention it. What is it and for whom? And here is the example that I have for you. Ignoring the problem the funder aims to solve. And again, I cannot stress this item more enough. It's not about your needs, it's about what they prioritize. How do we go about this? We use the language of the RFP. And again, we talked about how do we manipulate it, how do we use what we have to meet the requirement, so to speak. Unclear or unrealistic budget items. At some point in my career, I submitted grants without any overhead, zero overhead. The way I tried to address it was to give staff more time. So I gave them more tasks within the grant. So this way, at least I can compensate the staff for their time, even though I cannot guarantee that, the lights will be on. That's another issue that I said to myself, I'll find another source of funding for it. To ensure that you have to tie the expenditure, whether it's $1, $100, $1,000, to a program activity, literally an activity that you do, and you provide rationale for it. Always check and double check that your total matches the narrative and the budget tables. And that's what I have for you this evening. I appreciate you taking time to connect with me this evening. I'm available to you again on LinkedIn. Feel free to, look me up, Mishkat Al Newman at LinkedIn. You can find the Communication of Success also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Substack as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If the question will rise later, please reach out and